Okay, hi everybody, it's Sam. I'm going to read you chapter 2 to The Night Room by E.M. Goldman, and I'm sorry that I haven't read in a while. Okay. Tuesday, November 28th, chapter 2. It was after school and 5 students had gathered in room 101. There are still 2 girls coming, Miss Rudley said as they stowed winter jackets and books. I'll give them a few more minutes. I gave Sandra the announcement, Iris said, in case Mrs. Rudley thought he'd messed up. I didn't forget her. I was sure you wouldn't. The teacher began sorting papers on her desk. This has all been very last minute. You mean we're really going to do it? Mac was grinning. The simulation thing? He was the biggest guy in the classroom, one of the biggest in the school, a football player. You're really going to do it, Miss Rudley said from the front of the room. You, not me. I already know where I'm going to be when I turn 28. I'll be on a cruise heading somewhere hot. That was a joke unless she planned to start aging backwards. Miss Rudley had recently been given a surprise 30th birthday party by the other teachers at Banting. Before you ask, Miss Rudley said, the other students in your class will probably be seen in February. I was told that your names were chosen solely because your interviewers had finished their paperwork. Still, this is quite an adventure. The program is new as far as high school students are concerned. You can consider yourself pioneers. Guinea pigs, Tess muttered. I don't know about this. She had taken a seat to Ira's right. He was amazed she would even consider passing up this opportunity. It wasn't as though she was a coward. In the future, she would probably end up winning major awards for writing if she didn't get herself killed taking a close shot of an exploding bomb. She had taken out her spiral notebook and was scribbling hurried notes in what looked like Egyptian hieroglyphs. Her coppery hair fell over her eyes as she shoved it back. She scowled at him. What are you looking at? Not at you, he said gamely. That's for sure. Actually, he didn't mind looking at Tess, even though she dressed as though she was reporting from a war zone. He'd suspected that somewhere under all that khaki she had a body that wasn't half bad. He suddenly realized that Tess was looking him over from the top of his head down to his feet. Her gaze started back up again. He felt his face redden. What? I can't say that the view from here is all that great either, she said at last. So either stop looking at it or take pictures. And break my camera? He was about to say something back. Then the door opened and Sandra walked in. His mind immediately went into overload. I'm late, Sandra apologized. I know I am. You're just on time. Take any seat. Miss Rudley looked around. It looks like Barbara has been delayed, so we'll begin. Sandra set her books on the desk in front of Iris. Miss Rudley, what do they mean exactly when they say they want us to wear comfortable clothes? Comfortable clothes made Ira think of her wearing something thin and diaphanous, assuming that diaphanous meant seeing see-through. Loose sweat suits are ideal, Miss Rudley answered, spoiling his daydreams of Sandra drifting toward him in something white and flowing. Come in your jams if you want to, as long as they're decent. Other questions? She waited. Don't be afraid to sound silly. We're all here to learn. She waited again. Some classes at Banting were divided according to ability. Health wasn't one of those. That didn't keep anybody from knowing who the bright students were also the other kind. The class IQ range started at Barbara Flores, a certified genius. It ended at Graham Hork. As for Ira, he truly believed he belonged somewhere in that great bulge in the middle. Unfortunately, sometime in his early school year, a mischievous computer had messed up. He had been assigned intelligence test scores, indicating that if he wasn't destined to find a cure for cancer or blast off to the stars, he should be at least be able to coast through school. Ha. He got mostly C's, some B's, the occasional A. His report cards were filled with nagging computerized comments like try harder and if you use your class time wisely, you can complete your projects. He wondered whether anyone was ever congratulated for living up to his potential. Okay, Jimmy, you can go home early today. You hit your potential. Maybe he'd give them all heart attacks someday and surprise his potential. Maybe that's what Argus would show him success, whatever that meant. Hey, Graham had been reading his announcement at his desk. Hey, Miss Ridley, I don't get it. Which part don't you understand? All the words with more than 5 letters, Mac quipped. Tess straightened and turned around. Mac, I haven't seen your name on the honor roll lately. You haven't seen my name on the honor roll ever, and you're not going to, Mac sounded proud. You're going to see my name in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He turned toward the teacher. This Argus thing will show that, right? Rumor had it that during football season a scout had been looking Mac over from the stands. I'll take Graham's question first. The teacher nodded encouragingly. The slight boy gulped. I thought we were going to a party like in the future. Mac groaned. Graham looked around at the burly football player. Hey, I want to know, okay? I want to know more about that too, Ira thought he understood. What was going to happen, maybe not. Often his thoughts drifted when details were being explained. Tess glanced at him approvingly, although he had no idea why. You are going to a party, Miss Rudley said. That much is true, but... She hesitated at the sound of rapid footsteps in the hallway. Can it be? She asked as she headed toward the doorway. Zounds, it is. Barbara Flores almost collided with the teacher, who dodged inside at the last second, thus averting a serious disaster. To Barbara, pixie-ish was the term most often used to describe Barbara. She'd rounded out since she and Ira were sandbox buddies in kindergarten. Other than that, though, good old Barb hadn't changed much. She still looked as though she should be perched on a mushroom, wearing pointed shoes and a tasseled cap. Sorry I'm late, the breathless girl said. We were discussing Soily Sims, and I forgot. She took the announcement from the teacher's hand and read it in 2 seconds flat. This is it? That's wonderful. Sit, Mrs. Rudley directed. We were just talking about what everyone should wear. Something really comfortable, Barbara said. I've seen students waiting when I visit my dad in the science building, and it's hilarious. One guy wore baby blue slippers with feet. He even brought a teddy bear. Dr. Hallstrom has no sense of humor at all. She refused to let him in until he apologized to Argus. Apologized to the computer? Ira could read the writing on the wall. The educational project was not going to be fun. It was going to be educational. Barbara, the teacher said firmly, sit down and get your breath. Let me explain to the others. Please feel free not to interrupt until I'm finished. Not to... Barbara stood there. I understand, she said, sat and folded her hands. What if you get something wrong? Try not to snicker. Okay, Barbara said, go on. Ira had decided long ago that Barbara was okay. She made straight A's without studying. He suspected she couldn't help herself. Her mother was head of the university mathematics department, and her father ran the cyclotron. Barbara was widely rumored to be the byproduct of a nuclear meltdown. They were close friends going back to when he thought a genius was something that came out when you rubbed a magic lamp. Barbara was also the girl who had told him that some other girl thought he was cute. The teacher began again. In the Argus program, you will all attend a party marking your 10th class reunion. That means you will go forward 11 years. This is only a simulation. I'm sure you've all seen the holodeck in the Star Trek series. Everyone nodded. The Argus program isn't anywhere near as advanced as the holodeck. On the other hand, it's here today, so you don't have to hang around until the 24th century. Barbara looked sheepish. You were 200 years off. That's a long time. Miss Rudley seemed to be praying for strength from a god located inside the ceiling tiles. You recall those interviews that you went through last month with graduate students? There was a soft groan, instantly cut off. Barbara hadn't been all that impressed by her interviewer, the Twinkie. Argus produces highly realistic imagery constructed from input drawn from your interviewers and questionnaires. You will each go into a darkened room when your name is called. In that room, you will find a reclining chair. It's quite comfortable, or so I'm told. Hey, Sandy, Max said. Would you mind coming with me when it's my turn? I'm scared. I don't think so, she answered quietly. If Mac or anyone else feels nervous about this procedure, Miss Rudley said, there is no disgrace in dropping out. Mac made a face. A joke. I was joking. No joke. Many people don't care for the sound of this procedure. An apparatus will be put on your head. This is Argus. But it doesn't hurt, Joy Abercrombie sat on Ira's right. He didn't know her very well, although he'd seen her in the fall school play. She was plump, but not any more than he was skinny. Her statement came out as a question. No, it doesn't hurt, the teacher went on. Up to this time, Argus had been used to assist college students with career and lifestyle choices. The program's creator believes that Argus will help younger students as well. As we grow older, we do not appreciate changes in ourselves because they come slowly. This broad jump into the future gives us perspective on our own behavior, or so the literary says. We can see if we will become duplicates of our parents. No way, Graham looked pale. There is no way that I'm turning into my old man. Graham's father, an abusive alcoholic, was in jail for killing another man during a brawl. I don't think you will, Miss Rudley agreed softly. I won't be anybody's punching bag either. He leaned back, his color returning. I'm going to do okay. I just want to see, should I take carpentry or maybe diesel mechanics or maybe something else? He looked worried. If they've only been using the computer for college students, it's not going to try to make me go to college, is it? College isn't for everyone, Miss Rudley said. I've spoken to Dr. Hallstrom, and she understands that. So we're going to be asleep, Max said. A sort of sleep. Approximately 20 minutes of real time will pass for you here while you spend 2 hours at the reunion party. Joy's hands went up again. Where will there be food? I mean, if you eat the food at the party, will you get fat? I'm trying to lose weight, she flushed. Max sniggered. What about booze? We'll be adults, Iris said impatiently. The reality of the situation was becoming clear to him. In 11 years, they would be adults forever. I don't even want to think about how old I'll be, the teacher said. The party will be held in a hotel ballroom. There will be food and no doubt liquor. Since nothing actually exists, I believe it is fair to say that caloric consequences will be zilch. Remember, you are there to observe and learn. Don't use an expensive computer program to give yourself a hangover-free binge. Not me, Graham shook his head. No way, no how. Another thing, Mrs. Rudley picked up the papers from her desk. You will meet each other in the simulated future. That is, you will be meeting simulations of each other, only older. As far as everyone else at the party is concerned, 11 years have passed. If, say, Ira asks Tess for help on his history homework, she won't know what he's talking about, okay? Tess turned towards Ira. If you ask me for help here and now, she said, you won't get it. Ah, Tess, Ira whined. Please. As far as history went, the teacher was interesting and they both did okay. They smiled at each other, then stopped abruptly. I can see that the natives are getting restless. Miss Rudley raised her voice. I have forms here. The school district requires permission from your parents for you to go through Argus. The forms they signed earlier covered only the preliminary interviews. You will also need to see a doctor in the next few days so we can be sure you're healthy. There are instructions for you to follow next Thursday. You are to eat very lightly that day. Nothing afternoon except clear Non-alcoholic beverages. You can read the rest for yourselves. Last but not least, there is a release required by the university. Release, Mac said blankly. So you can't sue them if something goes wrong, Barbara piped up. Sorry, Miss Rudley. What can go wrong? Tess had that familiar look of hound on the scent. Supposedly nothing, Miss Rudley said. This is the requirement of the university. She looked around. Barbara had her hand up. All right, speak. Barbara turned her to face the others. Usually the images are pretty much what you'd expect, but sometimes people see themselves living lives that aren't so great. You could end up feeling like you're in a bad dream, a very real one. What if I dream about a snake biting me? Graham asked. Would I be poisoned? Nah, Max said the snake would. You might feel sick for a while. Barbara seemed serious. It's conceivable that a person with a heart condition could experience something so shocking that he died. That's why they have a screening process, to keep out people who are ill or unbalanced. Anyway, Graham, I don't think you have to worry about seeing any snakes at the party, except Mac, of course. Let me say this one last time, Mrs. Ripley said. While the concept of this program fascinates me, I am uneasy about students your age going through Argus. This has nothing to do with the program, but with your lack of maturity. In 3 years, you will be 3 years older. Mac and Ira applauded. The other laughed. Miss Rudley joined in. 3 years more mature, I mean. My feeling is that you'll benefit most from this program if you regard it as a fortune cookie. What's inside ain't necessarily so, she frowned at Barbara. This is sort of an open secret, Barbara said, but Dr. Hallstrom is working on Argus too. It's for people who have gone through the original Argus program. In this one, you'll be able to develop your own scenarios. It's a long way off, though, at least I think so. This was beginning to sound more and more like the holodeck. Miss Rudley picked up her briefcase. That's it, people. Go home. Sandy looked at her watch. Patrick is waiting for me. Hey, Sandra, Mac called, as she headed toward the door with her books. We have a date in the future. She just laughed and hurried out. 11 years, Mac said sagely, can make a whole lot of difference. In your dreams, Ira said. Okay, I'm afraid to read anymore because the other chapter is kind of long, so I'm just gonna make sure here. You know, I could read the other chapter. Why not? I thought it was long, but it wasn't. Okay, chapter 3. Sandra had decided not to say anything about the computer-generated program until dinner was over and her younger sisters had settled into their rooms. She brought up the subject casually while she and her mother were folding laundry together in the dining room. Her unsigned permission forms lay on the table. I'm not really comfortable with the Argus program, Miss Wilcox said as she finished a stack of towels. 300 years ago, its creator would have hanged for witchcraft. Argus doesn't claim to read the future, Sandra said. No, what would you call it? A projection. She hadn't meant her words to come out as a question. Something that's possible. Possible or probable. Her mother pulled a sheet from the basket and handed 2 corners to Sandra. They stood far apart. Miss Rudley says the choices are still up to us, and that other factors play a part. Luck, the economy, technology. At your age, Miss Wilcox fell silent as they folded the long sheet lengthwise. I used to fold sheets like this with my mother. I always felt it was like a dance. Sandra supposed it was a woman's dance, slow and stately. Her mother ended up with the neatly folded sheet. When I was a girl, it was my mother who held the sheets at the last. She was looking at Sandra in a way that seemed almost sad. Somehow, if God is willing, you will fold sheets with your own daughters and sons. She laid the folded sheet on a chair, then brought another from the laundry basket. But not for a while yet, she paused. Did you mention Patrick to the university interviewer? Sandra stiffened a little, she admitted. The questions were about my attitudes toward love and marriage generally. I think I said that I had a boyfriend. I'm not sure that high school students are mature enough for this program, her mother continued. Suppose Argus shows you married to Patrick. She'd be 17 in March. Her parents had become engaged when her mother was 17. I suppose that's possible. I like Patrick, her mother said. He's a nice boy. The problem is that people in love are so superstitious. Her mother stacked the newly folded sheets. I can see how couples might marry because it's been preordained by a computer. Argus isn't superstition. It's science. Sandra had told the interviewer that although she planned to go to college, she hoped to marry early. She hoped to marry Patrick. Your father and I have already agreed that you can participate in this program. Her mother started toward the linen closet. We just want to be sure that you keep some perspective, no matter what you see. She stopped. What if Argus doesn't show Patrick in your future? Do you honestly believe that you won't feel differently the next time you see him? Patrick would be there. He had to be. Chapter 4. This is going to be so dumb, Barbara said to her mother. After the meeting, she had returned to the University Science Building, to the office her parents shared. Probably, Dr. Flores was expressionless as she regarded her daughter over a stack of student assignments. She had been unimpressed with Barbara's account of her preliminary interview. Barbara chewed on her pencil eraser. It will probably be interesting too, no doubt, her father said. He was also Dr. Flores. Her parents were older than most, both over 40 when she was born. As a result, they frequently treated her like a colleague. She was expected to make up her own mind. The reunion would be a waste of time, definitely. She already knew what she planned to be. Much of her future was already mapped out. She didn't mind being surprised by the rest. Still, dumb and interesting wasn't a bad combination. Who wants to sign my forms? She asked. Both Dr. Flores reached for pens. Chapter 5. See, I might be able to read a few chapters. I bought the groceries you wanted. Graham had come home from the market to find his mother asleep on the couch. She turned so her face was toward him. Put him away, will you, honey? Sure. I'll get up pretty soon. I was just resting my eyes. He went to the kitchen. Nothing had changed since that morning, including last night's dishes. Some days it seemed like she barely moved. He'd bought some bread and eggs, a can of spaghetti. Milk was too expensive, but she said he probably wouldn't grow much more anyway. He'd be a small one like his dad. His father had treated them both bad, real bad, but she still missed him. She was sitting up slowly as he went back into the room. How are your eyes? Graham asked. Getting older, like the rest of me. She yawned. Shouldn't you be in school? What time is it? He told her. Lord, I must have been more tired than I thought. I don't see how I can watch so much TV when there's nothing on. Try to make a joke. You can trade places with me and go to school. She didn't laugh. You can leave school any time you want and get a job. Speaking of school, Graham spoke casually, there's a special program and I get to be a part of in it. What kind of special program? She frowned. You're not in any trouble, are you? No, he was shocked. It's an honor, sort of. Hey, there are only 7 from the school taking part. One of them is on the football team and one girl is running for student council. One of them is a girl whose parents teach at the university. She takes courses there and everything. There's a girl from the school paper. He couldn't think of the others. What do they want you for? It has to do with this health class we're all taking. His heart was thudding. If he tried to explain Argus to her, she'd never understand. He was having trouble understanding it himself, except that he wanted to see his future. He had to know whether his future was worth sticking around for. He couldn't end up like any of them. Not like his mom, sure to God, not like his dad. There's these papers they want you to sign. She leaned back, rubbed and shut her eyes. That school sure does hand out enough forms. If it's not one thing, it's another. Her eyes opened. How much is this honor going to cost me? Nothing, it's free. They just want some high school students to take part. He went up and shoved the papers at her. She let them fall into her lap. If they want high school students so bad, they should be paying you. It's educational, he repeated. I want to do it. It's only for one night. Wait, she said. There's something here about a doctor appointment. A doctor at the university hospital will check me out. It won't cost anything. He waited for her to ask why he needed to be examined at all. That wasn't something he'd understand too well. It was a requirement. That's all he knew. She didn't even bother to pick up her glasses to read the forms. If you want me to sign these papers, you better find a pen. He brought a pen from his knapsack, and she scribbled at the bottom of the first page. It was on the line for the date, but he didn't suppose that mattered. She stood after signing the second one correctly. If I have a son getting honors, maybe I'd better fix him some dinner. She looked around. Did you pick up those groceries I asked for? He was used to her not remembering what he said from one minute to the next. I got 'em, Mom. They're in the kitchen. She got to her feet slowly. You're a good boy. I don't know why, but that's what you are. She started toward the kitchen. Maybe you're too good for this world. Maybe I can read chapter 6. It was after dinner, and Joy lay on her bed reading the clippings in her scrapbook. She heard her mother's footsteps on the stairs. Joy, are you up there? Yes, Mama. Quickly she shoved the incriminating evidence under her bed so it was hidden by the flounce spread. She grabbed up a paperback book from her pillow. I'm reading. Mrs. Abercrombie approached the bed, then lifted the paperback to look at the title. Oh, honey, not another diet. Joy had spotted the book in the window of a bookstore the week before. I thought I'd take a look at it. Like her daughter, Mrs. Abercrombie was overweight. Heavy-set was the term she preferred. She sat down on the bed. Joy could practically recite her mother's next words. Big bones run in the family, and her next words after that. The doctors say you're perfectly healthy. The doctor had also agreed that she might feel happier if she'd lost some weight. 20 pounds over the norm is nothing to be concerned about. Besides, what is this world famous norm? It's a number between some poor little anorexic and the circus fat lady. It's my body, Joy protested. I was miserable at your age too, and for the same reason, for no reason, I made a good marriage to your father. Her father had died 2 years before in a car accident. Last year they moved to Long Acre, so Mrs. Abercrombie could live near her family. In a short time, Joy had lost her father, her community, and all her friends. She knew she sometimes ate more than she should. All the popular girls at school had wonderful figures. She figured that she'd try to fit in with the local crowd after she managed to fit into a size 10. If you're trying a fad diet so boys would notice you, don't bother. They are men who like something to hang on to, not just skin and bones. Her mother paused. The evidence of that is that I have a lovely family. Joy and her brother both had big bones. Her slim younger sister Sally could eat anything without gaining weight. Mom, do you think we could drop the subject now? Anyway, the problem wasn't just boys. It was everybody. Nobody wanted a newcomer who wasn't perfect. Mrs. Abercrombie was on a roll. Honey, you have beautiful skin and a very nice personality. Joy winced. Don't make that face at me, her mother ordered sharply. It just might freeze in that position. Then where will you be? Her face softened. You did say that the boys danced with you at the cast party after your high school play. They had. She had been almost too startled by the attention to enjoy it. She had a small part, a comic character role in a serious play. On opening night, the audience response was tepid for everyone else, but she received more applause than the stars. Mom, that was early November. Things were back to normal, meaning that she had returned to being invisible, to attempting to fill the gap with ice cream. Sometimes she felt as though she'd never be full again. All right, her mother said. Let me tell you why I came up here. While I was at your Aunt Reva's, she mentioned that the church youth group is going caroling. They're raising money for repairs to the old church bus. You have such a nice voice, and you did go to that one meeting, a meeting people who had all known each other forever. You said they seemed nice. She began to speak more quickly. I know you said you won't join anything until you lose at least 10 pounds, but well, this wouldn't exactly be joining. You'd be helping out. Besides, everybody will be bundled up against a cult. It should be fun. Joy's voice wasn't so much good as it was loud, but she could carry a tune. Besides, with other people marching around in the dark, she wouldn't have to worry about what to say, how to make an impression. Well, Mrs. Abercrombie said. With a start, Joy realized that she was actually considering going. I don't know. They'll have a practice session on Saturday. Reva said that you know the songs, so she was sure you could join anytime. Her mother picked up the Argus pamphlet from the night table. When you play this computer game next Thursday, how about giving me a phone call from the future? Joy smiled despite herself. It's only a simulation. Even in a simulation, I will still be your mother. Mrs. Abercrombie began to rise, then frowned. She leaned down and pulled the scrapbook from under the bed. Uh-oh. She laid the scrapbook on the bedspread. You didn't tell these computer people that you wanted to be an actress. Joy's cheeks heated up. We were supposed to mention anything we thought of. You want something steady? A hairdresser or a secretary. Mrs. Abercrombie was taking a secretarial course at the community college. The interviewer asked what I might want to be and what I would hate worse than death. Maybe she'd enjoy being a hairdresser. She would love to be an actress. It's fine to do what you want, but you have to think that a time might come people might depend on you to clothe and feed them. Her mother stood again and headed toward the door. In case you're interested, I'm baking cupcakes. They'll be ready for tasting in an hour. Joy groaned. Okay, that's all I'm going to read because I'm afraid to read another one. Even though it's really short, I'm just afraid like I'd start reading and then I'd get like halfway done and then I won't be able to read anymore. So, hope you enjoyed this chapter. Bye.